making a pizza tonight, and there's a couple things from my garden that I can harvest today to make that pizza even better. Like some fresh peppers and basil. And even in the last couple of days, I've been harvesting a ton of tomatoes. So I'm going to use my fresh tomatoes that I grew myself for this pizza as well. I even posted a picture of myself with some of the tomatoes I harvested in the last few days on Reddit, and so many people were commenting and asking, hey, where do you live where you're already harvesting tomatoes in May? Well, I live in Houston, Texas, and for the last week or so, I've been harvesting so many tomatoes, so it's the perfect time to use those tomatoes in this recipe. But one of the best things about having a garden is being able to grow your own food and then using that food in the recipes you cook with. So let's go harvest those peppers, that basil, and those tomatoes for this pizza tonight and garden on. So I love a little spice on my pizza and in my food in general. And one of my favorite peppers that I grow in my garden are cayenne. And there's a couple cayenne peppers that are ripe and ready to be harvested. So I'm going to pick those today, even though there's not very many on this plant because it's still a young pepper plant. So I'm just going to check and see if there's any more tomatoes on these plants. Earlier today I harvested some tomatoes in the rain. It was actually really refreshing and fun to harvest tomatoes right in the rain. Looks like there's a couple right here. So these aren't 100% ripe, but this is called the breaker sage. It will ripen inside and still taste relatively fresh. The vine looks like it was dying, so they need to be picked anyways. So basically with the breaker sage, most of the nutrients and the sugars are already in the tomato. So that way you can take them inside and let them finish ripening inside where they're not going to get any pest damage or any little critters eating them. I've actually had quite a few tomatoes that I've lost to either birds or some kind of animal like a squirrel, maybe a rat, I'm not sure. Like this one right here, looks like a bird ate this one, so this one's no good. But yeah, it's better to pick your tomatoes early because they have most of the flavor locked in, and that way you don't have to risk something else eating your tomato. You know, there's just a lot of elements and factors that could make you lose your crop. So rather than taking a risk, just go ahead and harvest them. I know that's more controversial than I expected. So my Italian grandfather, who grew tomatoes and plants his whole life, gardened his whole life, they were all, him and my grandmother were always harvest tomatoes at the breaker stage early and put them on the windowsill or in the house. So I'm a firm believer that it's better to harvest tomatoes early than not harvest any tomatoes at all, because I think there's a common misconception about growing tomatoes. So tomatoes at the grocery store are picked at the mature green stage, which is before the breaker stage. So those tomatoes don't have as much flavor as tomatoes picked at the breaker stage. I made a video the other day, got a lot of backlash, some people unsubscribed because, like I said, I didn't realize it was such a polarizing topic that so many people were going to act like it was some political topic. But I think you should harvest your tomatoes early. That way you actually get tomatoes that are not damaged and they still taste pretty good. They definitely don't taste like any grocery store tomato. They still have a garden fresh taste. Alright, so I just harvested a few things from my garden, so let's go ahead and start that pizza. I found this new gluten-free pizza crust that I'm going to be trying today. It's just a plain crust, so let's go ahead and show you guys some of the toppings I'm going to add to this pizza. So I got the tomato sauce. Yeah, I have tomatoes in my garden, but I don't really have enough to do a big tomato sauce. Plus, it takes a lot of time. So I got the jar, but this is straight from Italy. And we got the mozzarella. That's exactly how my grandfather would pronounce it. Don't pronounce it mozzarella. It's mozzarella. Put some fresh mozzarella on here. We got a couple of those tomatoes I harvested from my garden over the last couple of days. Gonna slice these tomatoes up and put some fresh tomatoes on this pizza as well. So I always harvest my tomatoes early at the breaker stage, like I said earlier, and like I had a video too, just like my grandfather used to do throughout his whole life. That's all he did. He was a big gardener. And the reason why you harvest your tomatoes at the breaker stage is so you actually harvest tomatoes without damage. So they're still going to have most of that flavor and nutrients locked in, probably like 95% of it, depending on when exactly you harvest it. But if you harvest your tomatoes at around 50% ripeness and you ripen them inside, they're still going to taste, you know, just like a fresh garden ripe tomato. There's really not much of a difference. So I say, why take the risk of, you know, having something else take your tomatoes from you? Harvest them early and ripen them inside. So we also got some peppers. These are some cayenne. I think this is some kind of sweet pepper. This other one, I forgot exactly what variety it was. So let's go ahead and cut some of these peppers up. Love a little spice on my pizza, especially when they're fresh peppers from my garden. And then who can have pizza without basil? Let's put some of that fresh basil on this pizza that I grew from my garden. I got some Romano cheese right here. Grate some of that on this pizza. Some provolone and Parmesan. Then we can't forget the pepperoni. So I'm gonna put this in the oven at 450 degrees until it's nice and golden brown and everything's nice and crispy. All right, so here's that pizza. It was in the oven for about 20 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it up. I got this Enterprise pizza cutter. Pretty cool, I've had it for a few years now. It's sizzling really hot right now. But yeah, so garden fresh food is the way to go. So if you guys haven't ever had a garden, I recommend starting a garden and harvesting your tomatoes at the breaker stage. But yeah, look at that pizza, nice and fresh. But if you like this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more gardening videos. And let me know in the comments, do you want to see more food videos related to gardening? But until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side of the garden. Thanks for watching.